The Cherokee Nation is a sovereign government providing services and improving the lives of Cherokee people across the globe. But did you also know that the nation has a more than $3.1 billion impact across the state of Oklahoma? In today's episode, we'll find out more about Cherokee Nation's economic impact. Osio Nagad, Jen Lauren Dawado, Noksi, Chalagi, Gadi. Welcome to Chalagi, wherever we are. We'll start today's show with remarks from Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskin Jr. After that, Chief Hoskin will join me for a Q&A. Next, we'll hear from Deputy Chief Bryan Warner, who will be joined by CEO of Cherokee Nation Businesses, Chuck Garrett. Then, C&B Chief Economist Tralynna Scott and Dr. Russell Evans will join me for a panel discussion highlighting the Cherokee Nation, its businesses, and the tribe's economic impact in the region. And lastly, we will be joined by a special guest, Cherokee storyteller Tanyas Story. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. for his remarks.
OCO, Cherokee Nation's economic impact is more than dollars and data. It's a reflection of our deep commitment to the prosperity of the Cherokee people and the communities we call home. Our latest economic impact report, released every 2 years, analyzes the financial impact of Cherokee Nation's fiscal year 2023 spending within the 14-county Cherokee Nation Reservation. It shows where our dollars go across the reservation and how those investments ripple through our communities. Economic development isn't a one-to-one exchange. A dollar spent on the construction of a child care center, for example, supports far more than just labor and materials. Of course, we buy materials from local vendors and hire local contractors and tradespeople, which helps those workers support their families. But in turn, they spend their earnings in local shops, restaurants, and services. Some even go on to use the same child care center themselves. In total, Cherokee Nation's impact on Oklahoma's economy now exceeds $3.1 billion. We support nearly 23,000 jobs in Northeast Oklahoma, and we have a workforce of over 14,000 employees. We're proud to be a driving force in our state's economic growth, and we remain committed to improving lives across the 7,000 square mile Cherokee Nation Reservation. Our profits are reinvested in programs, services, and infrastructure that benefit Cherokees and non-Cherokees alike. This report reminds us just how far each dollar reaches, creating opportunities, strengthening communities, and building a better future for all. Widow.
Chief, thank you for joining me over here to talk a little bit more about our economic impact. What stood out the most to you in the findings of the most recent impact report?
Well, what stood out the most was not just overall growth, but a good spread, a good geographic spread. The report will break down for people when they look at it, the counties. And so they can see close to home what the impact was. But it really impressed me that our employment numbers are up and the jobs that we create are up. And so that's all positive because at the end of the day, it's about economic opportunity for individuals, and that spreads out through the communities.
I think, people around Oklahoma and the Cherokee Nation recognize that, and they are always asking what's going on in the Cherokee Nation and seeing what we're doing. So it's great to see this report put some numbers to that.
Absolutely. Numbers can't tell the entire story, but they're important. And if you track these reports over the years, we do them every 2 years, you can see steady growth. And so that's, I think, one point of pride for the Cherokee people is that their nation is a driver of the region's economy in a really important way.
Absolutely. So how does Cherokee Nation use the insights from the report to guide policy decisions or strategic planning?
Well, some of it is to get an understanding that we're moving in the right direction, that the investments are paying off. I mean, there's some numbers that really impress me. I mentioned the employment numbers. It's the indirect employment numbers that I think are the most important. 23,000 people in the region have jobs because of Cherokee Nation's investment. So
That's
it
incredible.
it really is.
Yeah.
Mostly these are small businesses working for small businesses. And so what that means is that what we're doing is a really big number. We have a really big business portfolio, but it is impacting people at the grassroots in ways that's creating businesses, wealth, local investment that's not even ours directly, but it's local entrepreneurs. So We're moving in the right direction. Let's keep moving in that direction. But we have to understand what direction are we moving in. Diversification. We are, of course, a tribe with a business that's known for gaming and entertainment, and we're top of the market. But most of what we do in our businesses is diversified in ways other than that. So federal contracting. The studio that we're in is part of that diversification effort. We have a meat processing plant. I mean, there's lots of different ways that we are spreading out the business investment, and it continues to pay off. And so that tells us we need to keep going there. But the other thing is this, as we're looking at employment numbers, we want to make sure that we continue to be the employer of choice. So I think somewhere in the order of 14,500 employees plus work directly for the Cherokee Nation. If we want to continue to see that investment, every employee is an investment, be something that is good for them and good for their families, we've got to be the employer of choice. So I want us to continue to lead on things like salary, benefits, and things like that that really impact people individually and locally.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So, as principal chief, how do you strike a balance between driving the economic growth and then protecting Cherokee cultural values, especially when you're looking at allocating, Cherokee Nation businesses' revenues and federal dollars?
Well, there's a couple of things there from your question. One is, are we in businesses that are good for communities and the economy? And we are. We're not involved in operations that I think run afoul of our values, but in the world of business opportunities, there could be those. And I think we have to stay true to who we are. We're delivering, in terms of government contracting, the best of services for the government of the United States. Whatever their mission is, we feel like we can help accomplish that. That's something that I think is we should be proud of, that we're the contractor of choice. What we do in gaming and entertainment creates a lot of jobs and a lot of revenue that goes back into communities. But the other thing is this, we have a business that's generating a lot of revenue. We can't take all of that and put that into short-term investment or even short-term payments or investments in local communities or people. We've got to strike a balance. Because if we put all of it into those efforts, as attractive as they are, we will not have businesses that 2 years from now are generating more employment, are generating more economic impact in communities. So it is a balance, but I think we've struck it nicely. So just in the last year, we've said that in the next 3 years, we'll spend $40 million of Cherokee Nation businesses revenue on something important, housing and building up community structures. There's more than $40 million in need for housing, but we've got to make sure the businesses can continue to grow so that just in housing, they can do that. And I could take you down all sorts of issues to show where
Sure.
we're striking this balance.
Hmm.
But it's the stuff of governing, and it's something that council members, myself, and the deputy chief have to think about all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a lot of hard work to strike that balance, but I work among a lot of great people at Cherokee Nation businesses, and so I think you all have assembled a great team. So,
I think so too.
all right. Well, thank you so much for joining me to talk more about this, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
We go now to Deputy Chief Bryan Warner, who is joined by Cherokee Nation Businesses CEO Chuck Garrett. Deputy Chief?
What up, Jen? And CL to God. Hello, everyone. Deputy Principal Chief Bryan Warner here with another edition of Cherokees Wherever We Are. Today, we are in downtown Tulsa, America at the Williams Tower here in the Cherokee Federal Building. And I got a special guest today, our CEO, Mr. Chuck Garrett. Chuck, how are you doing today?
I'm well, Deputy. Good to see you.
Good. Well, I think it's always good just to jump right in. We talk about values and principles now. And here you have purpose, you have integrity, you have commitment, and all wrapped in Godoogie. Tell me a little bit more of how this sets the tone for what we do on the business side of the Cherokee Nation.
Well, as you said, critical that we have values that everyone shares and everyone understands. Our mission is clear: to serve the Cherokee Nation and its citizens, to build the economy in the Cherokee Nation. But it becomes how you do that.
Right.
And do it with integrity. We do it with intentionalities. We're planning what we do. We do it with commitment to our communities, to our guests, to our customers, to our employees. And we do that all in the spirit of Gadudi, where we're doing things for the bigger good.
Yeah. Well, that's very important, kind of bonding together for that common good. Now, I wouldn't go into any restaurant and ask the master chef, give me all of your secrets and all these things. But I know the folks are wanting to know, how do you hear on Cherokee Nation business side, how do you balance profitability with that mission of serving the Cherokee people, serving those Cherokee communities? How do you do that?
And that is a trick, and it is something that we have to continuously balance. They're not always at odds, but they also are not always complementary of one another. Our magic in our special sauce is that purpose that you talked about. If you keep an eye on, and we preach this and we all adhere to this, if you keep strong focus on purpose, sometimes the purpose is to make money so we can provide that financial dividend. Right. Sometimes it is to make a non-financial impact, whether it's through our cultural tourism, some of the other programs and initiatives that you can't measure on a bottom line, right? But you can see the impact in the communities. And so it's a balancing act. It's working with you and Chief Hoskin, and we balance these things to have the ultimate good.
You talked about that social impact. How do you measure that social impact with what we're doing on the profitability side and all of these things?
That also is a little bit of a trick, because it's not necessarily science. Some of the empirical evidence that we look for in other parts of our business which makes it easier to measure. But you see when you're changing people's lives.
Absolutely.
You can sense that. You see where people are getting opportunities that they never imagined.
Right.
So when we see that, we communicate that and we share that, and through that process, we know when we're doing some good.
Well, something that you can measure is economic impact. And just recently, Chief Hoskin and yourself and Chairman Baker rolled out the economic impact report, $3.14 billion worth of economic impact. Tell me some of the things that went into finding that report, but on the other side of that, how does it make you feel? And more importantly, though, the individuals that you get to work with.
Yeah, what an incredible day that was to share that with our employees, the other citizens of the Cherokee Nation, and our neighbors. Incredible day, incredible impact that we're having as collectively, and it is something that is highly motivating. I think it does capture that direct and indirect economic impact that we're having through purchases of goods and services, through salaries, through other economic benefits to our employees. It's an amazing tool, and the impact is something that I think we're all so proud of, and it acts as a huge motivator and distinguishes us from the other 100 companies that are within a block or two of this.
Right.
We have something very special going on here, and that economic impact represents, a part of that, but it's an important part.
It is, what I think some of the things that caught my eye was the sheer mass number of employees that we have between the government side and the business side. But I think, almost 25,000 indirect impact to 25,000 jobs that are out there. I mean, that was a large number. Looking ahead, though, you mentioned something, and we're a native group. We're part of a tribal nation here, and it makes us proud. We're more than just a government. $150 million, Chuck, towards native-owned businesses. Tell me about what's kind of the strategy behind doing that. How does that make you feel, although we're helping those businesses?
You bet, and it's an important part of their business plan, and it's important to us too. When we look at our supply chain, which all businesses look at, we see an opportunity to boost and lift up those tribally owned or tribal owned through individual business owners we see an opportunity to do business with them, quality work that they're delivering to us, and for competitive prices. So we lean into that at every opportunity.
Well, and too, I know you and others, CNB has been a big part of some major investments within the tribe itself. I mean, we're building a new hospital, replace the Hastings Hospital, and I'm excited about that replacement part of that, because we're going to get into that behavioral health world and redo some things there. But, just here in Catoosa at the Hard Rock, our flagship hotel and casino, we've been able to do some investments. So tell me a little bit more about child care and about healthcare on that campus.
Right. Well, it's important to us to serve our employees in their needs. There's no question that child care and adequate child care is a barrier to a lot of individuals that want to be employed. Also healthcare. We have to have a healthy workforce. So we have on campus at the Hard Rock a healthcare clinic for our employees, and soon to be opened child care center that will be able to serve. And frankly, no other employer in this area is doing that kind of service to the employees. But that's part of us and part of our values that we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. Well, and too, over in Pryor, Mid-American Industrial Park, we partnered with that group, and we're able to put a child development center over there, early childhood unit. So I think it's very important. I know they talk so much about how that child care is an integral piece of helping the workforce find a way to fill those needed jobs, those placements. Kind of looking ahead though, we've been talking about investments here on the Cherokee Nation reservation. Tell me what's on the horizon, what's been going on outside the reservation?
Well, part of what we need to do as a forever company, which is how I view us and how we have to think about ourselves as we're building a company that serves generations. Diversification is critical. Of course, we had a big head start in gaming, followed by our work that we currently do in federal contracting. But there's the next business line, the business line after that will help provide that sustainable cash flow that provides the dividends that allow us to continue to support the programming that you and the chief and the council determine is necessary. And so those opportunities don't always fall within the 14 counties of the reservation,
Right.
But those profits come back to serve our reservation and our nation. So we will go high and far to seek out opportunities that ultimately benefit our shareholders.
We get to serve along with one another, but really, tell me how important the employees are that are under you. That I know each and every day, my main job is to try to find them time so that they can spend with families and different things. But tell me, what is your secret to that success with employee satisfaction?
Well, our employees are everything. Just plain and simple. It is so incredibly important for us to have a quality workplace, a safe, supportive workplace, but also adequate training to allow people to be all they can be. And that is something that I think as an employer, we take very seriously. We have an opportunity for people to move laterally and of course, up the organization, but across our business lines, and really pursue their dreams and aspirations. And we have to support that.
Well, Mr. Garrett, I appreciate your time, your talent, and your dedication to the Cherokee people, because I know you work here under Cherokee Nation businesses, but that whole, each day that an individual that works, whether it's the government side or the business side, we have the people on our mind. They're the ones that drive that vision, and I'm just so appreciative of you. And if we just continue to pick Yadoogie, purpose, integrity, commitment, Yadoogie, I think that is a great way to set our values and set the stage, no matter where we're at in this great world that we live in. So,
couldn't agree more, and thank you for the opportunity to visit.
Well, I appreciate everyone again for joining in. Jen, back to you. Why don't?
Well, no, Deputy Chief Warner and CEO Garrett for your leadership and support. We appreciate you. I am now joined by Tralynna Scott, Chief Economist for Cherokee Nation Businesses, and Dr. Russell Evans, who leads the Oklahoma City based research team who carefully collected and reviewed data to ensure Cherokee Nation's impact on the state is accurately presented. Thank you all both so much for joining us today to talk about this. It's an important topic and affects a lot of people in Oklahoma. So, Tralynna, let's start with you. Cherokee Nation recently released its economic impact report, and that indicates that the Cherokee Nation drives more than $3.1 billion annually to the Oklahoma economy. So, in simple terms, how do you calculate economic impact and what does it really tell us?
Yeah, so putting that big number into context, you calculate economic impact by looking at the total monetary value of a specific activity. So in this case, it's the spending of the Cherokee Nation is the activity, and from there you look at the ripple effects of that. And there are things called direct impact, which is the dollars that the Cherokee Nation actually spends. And then there's the indirect impact, which is the dollars that the vendors and the businesses and the tradesmen get from the Cherokee Nation and how those are spent. And then that comes out to your induced impact or your total economic impact.
Okay. So, a lot of calculating, a lot of
Yeah.
spending, and a lot of calculating.
Very, very much so, right?
Yeah.
So, Dr. Evans, can you explain the difference between what the tribe spends and the overall economic impact of that spending?
Sure. Yeah, Trailing did a great job sort of delineating how we think about conceptualize economic impacts. And it really all starts with what does the tribe produce, what does the tribe do, and then what does it buy? And if you start from there and then you go out and you begin to think about the impact that that has across vendors and households, in reality, the tribe probably spends more than its economic impact. Because if you really start from kind of a restricted view of what is the tribe on the government side and the business side, what do they spend? The reality is they're spending a lot of dollars that may come in from outside the region. It may not start from their own production. It may be federal dollars that come in from outside. And we limit our perspective only to really what's the production that takes place here and what are the vendor purchases that take place here. So in a lot of ways, I think it should be acknowledged at the outset that the economic impact, as large and as significant as it is really an undercount, is an underestimate of the total influence of the tribe on the regional economy in northeastern Oklahoma. But it really starts with that spending, looks at both what does the tribe do on a recurring basis, but also what do they do on a one-time basis. I think one of the things that people sometimes miss is that the Cherokee Nation is a layer of government right here that sits alongside cities and counties and state governments and also receives federal dollars that then get spent locally in the economy. So certainly that's very significant as well.
So, what are some of the biggest economic drivers that were in the report, and why do they matter?
Yeah, the drivers that sort of matter to us that we always find very fascinating is just the influence that the tribe has across the community. So every economic impact report is really measuring a level of connections. And so the bigger the number, the more deeply rooted the tribe is in regional communities and in the regional economy. And so you see that big headline number, a $3 billion number is a big number, but what should really signal to you is deep roots in the community and in the regional economy. And you see that in terms of, the compensation that's paid into households. It's always amazing to us that even counties where the tribe has very little direct economic influence, we can track dollars being paid to households who may be traveling into a Cherokee Nation hub and working, and then traveling home to their home county and spending that at a local grocery store, at a local diner, with a local doctor's office in their home community. So looking at those payments into households is significant. Now, looking at those federal dollars, those one-time ARPA or COVID relief or CARES Act dollars that we've seen over the last 3 or 4 years, significant when you think about sort of that additional layer of government. And the other thing that always strikes us is investment in community, whether that's investments in hospitals and education centers, really significant investments in rural areas of the state where you don't see a lot of those construction dollars, capital expenditure dollars occurring naturally. They're really driven by a very financially successful and deeply rooted tribe in northeastern Oklahoma.
Absolutely. Traylon, are there any areas or sectors that showed a surprisingly high impact or anything that you want to point out?
Yeah, well, going off of what Dr. Evans said, talking about in the communities and especially in the rural communities, is the amount that Cherokee Nation spent with native-owned vendors, or taro vendors, as they're also called. This year we learned we spent $150 million in
Wow.
FY23 with native-owned vendors,
That's great.
and that is about a 40% increase from fiscal year 2021. So that was significant and really shows those deep roots within the communities
Mhm.
and the Cherokee Nation's investment in not only those people, but those communities.
That's awesome.
And the other one that I think is maybe a little not as highlighted in the report is healthcare. So everyone, is familiar with the Cherokee Nation's, expansive healthcare system.
Right.
And while the direct dollars, the direct impact from the healthcare dollars is calculated in our total output, what's really not captured there is some financial impacts that aren't easily calculated or can't even be calculated, such as, the people who are going to the Cherokee Nation health system. That means they're not going to the Oklahoma healthcare system, which not only saves Oklahoma dollars, healthcare dollars, but it also lessens the burden on Oklahoma's healthcare system and frees them up to see more patients.
That's a great point.
And and with local employees, it also has a big financial or employers. I'm sorry, has a big financial impact because the sick days, we don't have a quantification for, a number of sick days for employees, or the employer paid health insurance
Uh-huh.
for employers.
Yeah.
So that has one of the largest impacts in Northeast Oklahoma, I believe, is our healthcare system.
Yeah, it's always remarkable to me every other year that we do this to see the payments that come through the system, and you see all of these payments to things like Boys and Girls Club or like this local school and this community center, and the way those things work through the economic impact models, they have very, very small multipliers, and I always think that the multiplier doesn't do justice to the impact of spending like that exactly the way you've described. It really has an impact that's far greater
Right.
than the multiplier that's going to get attached to it. It's a significant spend.
Wow. So, Dr. Evans, from your perspective, how can tribal leaders or policymakers use these findings from the study to encourage more growth?
Yeah. I think the first is really to focus on is to, in some ways, not get lost in the size of that headline number and recognize that the message is deeply rooted connections. And so the question is, well, how do you leverage deeply rooted connections to the region's benefit, right?
Yeah.
You acknowledge that they're there. And I think everybody acknowledges at this point that when we look around the state and you look really around the nation, but certainly when you look around Oklahoma, that having a financially successful, growing, thriving tribe in your rural community is a net benefit to those rural communities. So the question is, I think that you're asking is, well, how do you leverage that? How do you get the
Right.
most out of that you can? I think a lot of it comes down to partnerships, the sort of partnerships we were just talking about that we see in the data. We see these partnerships with local communities. A lot of it comes down to the tribe is really leading the way in retaining some workforce in these communities by giving them viable opportunities to work. We looked at the tribe last year provided employment opportunities to more than 14,000 individuals. And some of those are career individuals. Those are full-time jobs. A lot of those might be part-time jobs, maybe transitional employment. But to just have the opportunity in your own backyard when you need it to either go forge a career or to get a temporary
Right.
job for a minute
Yeah.
is really impactful because it keeps those workers in the community for the next employer. And the next employer may not be tribal. The next
Yeah.
employer may be, maybe something that the city, the local community is working on. But that next employer benefits from, retaining and
Hmm.
training an employer base that sort of stays here in communities where, candidly, economic opportunities are kind of difficult to come by.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, Tralynna, what local economic trends are you seeing within the Cherokee Nation, and how might those trends align or differ from what we're seeing on a national level? Tralynna, so what local economic trends are you seeing within the Cherokee Nation, and how do they differ from maybe what we're seeing on a national level?
Yeah, so some of the trends that we're seeing and have been seeing over time, of course, we have our $3.1 billion impact this in fiscal year 23, which is an increase, and it has increased year over year. We've been doing this since
2010 or 12.
2012 in that area when the economic impact was just over $1 billion. So every time that we do this, and we do it every other year biannually, it grows.
Yeah.
The total economic impact grows, the number of jobs grows, the wage amount grows, everything grows. So
Yeah.
it shows that the Cherokee Nation is strong, has been strong, and will continue to be strong in future generations. A couple of the other things are, our investment infrastructure has really spiked recently. From the construction of the new hospital in Tahlequah, it's going to be a $400 million hospital there in Tahlequah. We're building early childhood centers
Yeah, so cool.
everywhere.
Yeah.
We've invested in language through the Durban Feeling Center, and in that is also education. So our infrastructure has grown significantly. And those, again, are things where you can measure the economic impact now just by the dollars spent on construction and hiring people and paying employees, et cetera. But what you don't measure is the impact of that infrastructure for generations to come. I mean, that Durban Feeling Center is going to be there and teaching people the Cherokee language for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
So those are things that are going up. And obviously, along with the larger national economy, we're recovering strong from the pandemic. That was obviously a very difficult time financially and otherwise for the for the country. So, those are the things that are kind of in common. But I would say that one thing that differs from the national economy is that we see a migration to, more populated urban towns and cities throughout the nation. People are migrating there for job opportunities, et cetera. Whereas the Cherokee Nation is very intentional in our investment in our communities. Just as I said earlier, the amount that we've spent with Native-owned vendors, the amounts of grants that we give to local cities and counties, their fire departments or the police departments, and then the Cherokee organizations. We have Cherokee organizations throughout, and we, offer them grants and stuff to build up their own communities. So I think whereas the nation seems to be migrating towards urban centers that are more densely populated, we're really focused on our smaller communities in rural Oklahoma.
Absolutely. So what roles do partnerships play, whether that's state, federal, maybe private entities? How do they help in shaping our economic impact?
Yeah, so we have partnerships with all of the above that you mentioned. Starting with the federal government, like Dr. Evans said earlier, the Cherokee Nation is another layer of government within the state of Oklahoma. So that means that we can leverage federal dollars that come directly to the Cherokee Nation, and the way we expend those federal dollars obviously has a significant impact on the economy. And those are, again, layered on top of any federal dollars that come through the state or local government. So that is just an added benefit for really everyone in the region.
Yeah.
We also have, partnerships with Oklahoma. We pay a significant amount. I believe this year was $35 million in compact fees to the state of Oklahoma, and they use 80% of that for education by law. And we use a significant portion of the tag revenue from the Cherokee Nation car tags, and we give that directly to public schools in and around the reservation. So our partnerships there through the state of Oklahoma are significant. I already mentioned the local ones. We, grants and everything to fire departments and police stations. But also with our vendors, we focus a lot on local vendors and keeping our dollars within our reservation. So we do have a greater multiplier effect. So we have partnerships all over. I know that the Cherokee Nation could not operate efficiently without great partnerships throughout.
Yeah, great. Dr. Evans, looking ahead, what indicators will you be watching most closely when it comes to tracking future tribal economic growth?
Yeah. So we're really excited. I think we've been doing this, as Tralynna said, for probably 12 or 14 years now. And so we've kind of got a system down. And as we went through the system, we were like, it's time for us to kind of revisit that and sort of think about, are there impacts now? We know we're capturing the core of the impacts. What are we missing, right? What are we not capturing? So we're really looking forward as we go forward to really thinking about, on the government side, how can we do a better job of capturing some of those dollars that are flowing in from outside sources and how they're being used? How can we do a better job reflecting the true impact of the grants that are written, or the investment in healthcare, or the investment in education? To Tralynna's point, that's in large part, that's why people are migrating to urban areas, is they're migrating in pursuit of job opportunities and learning opportunities. and for the Cherokee Nation to be in a rural area and to say, we're going to facilitate educational opportunities here and job opportunities here, at least provide some optionality for residents to stay more connected to their local communities. And so we're really interested in going beyond just the headline number that we've really kind of got a good system now in place for, and trying to look a little more broadly and see how can we broaden the conversation a little bit.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I think this is really important. It's a really important conversation for a lot of reasons, but I feel like everyone, sees the Cherokee Nation in the headlines, about like where, we write a check to the school with our car tag revenue, people see those things and they know we're making a big impact, but this is really great to see it all, see the data and to really see what the whole of that looks like. So we appreciate the work that you all do. Thank you. Thanks for joining us and breaking it down.
Thanks for having us.
To wrap up our show, we have a special guest. We are joined in studio by Cherokee storyteller Tanyas Story. Tanya?
Sionagad, Ogandawado. Hello, my name is Tanyas Story, and I'm going to tell you the story of the fox and the crawdad race. A long, long time ago, Fox was running through the forest, chasing butterflies and chasing bees and running away from bees and just frolicking and having a good time. But after a while, it was a warm summer day and he started getting thirsty. So he stopped and listened to see if he could hear the babbling of a brook or a stream. And sure enough, in the distance, he could hear the sounds of water rolling over the rocks. And so he made his way over to the creek and he found this beautiful creek with crystal clear water. And he knew that was just what he needed to refresh his thirst. So he bent down to get a drink and he heard, "Hey!" He looked up and he looked this way and he looked this way. And he didn't see anybody. So he thought, maybe I was just hearing things. So he closed his eyes to get another drink. And when he was getting a drink this time, he heard, "Hey, stop that." And he opened his eyes, and in front of him in the water was a crawdad. And the fox looked at the crawdad and said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "You can't drink this water." And the fox said, "Why not?" And the crawdad said, "Because this is my water." And the fox looked at him and said, "What do you mean this is your water? This is everybody's water. The fish live here, the crawdads live here." And the crawdad said, "Where do I live?" "In the water." "Right, so it's mine. So it's my water. You can't drink from it." He said, "But I'll tell you what, I'll race you." And the fox looks at this crawdad and is like, "Okay." And the crawdad said, "If I win, you can no longer drink from my water." And the fox is looking at this crawdad. It's about this big, runs backwards. There's no way this crawdad is going to beat me. I'm one of the fastest animals in the forest. And so the fox said, okay, I'll take you on that bet." He says, "What do I get if I win?" And the crawdad said, "Well, you can drink from the water." And the fox said, "Okay." About that time, here comes Rabbit hopping by. They grab Rabbit and tell him that they're going to race. And Rabbit said, "Okay." So he goes down to the creek bed a little bit and draws a line in the dirt. Fox and crawdad draw a line in the dirt and they get ready to race. Now Fox isn't going to try to run very fast because, first of all, this crawdad can't be that fast. It runs backwards. It's 2 inches long. It's not going to be very fast. And I'm one of the fastest animals in the forest. Of course I'm going to beat this animal. And so Fox gets ready and he gets down and he doesn't really think he's going to have to run that fast. He's going to do a little jog because he's still thirsty. He wants to get a drink of water. And crawdad scoots back to the line. And Rabbit said, "Go!" And Fox takes off. But when Fox takes off, crawdad jumps out of the water and grabs that little tuft of fur at the end of Fox's tail and grabs on. So as Fox is running, and again, Fox isn't running that fast because he doesn't think he's going to has any competition with this crawdad. And when he stops, he turns his head to see where crawdad is because he knows he beat him. And when he does that, his tail flips over and crawdad lets go. So Fox is looking behind him. He doesn't see him. He turns and he sees crawdad sitting in front of him. And he's shocked. And Fox is like, "How did you beat me?" Fox doesn't even remember seeing crawdad pass him when they were running. But he wasn't paying that much attention because he was thinking that there's no way this crawdad could beat him. And so crawdad said, "All right, that's it. I won, so you can no longer drink from my water." And Fox is like, wait a minute. I wasn't even trying. I wasn't even trying that fast. I wasn't even really running. He said, "Let's race one more time." And crawdad's like, "No, I already beat you." And Fox said, "I'll really try this time." He said, "I wasn't even trying. I didn't think you were that fast." And crawdad's like, "Okay, but one more time. Mind you, Rabbit saw what happened, and he's not saying anything. But Rabbit hops down to the other side of the creek, draws a line in the dirt, and Fox and Crawdad get ready to race again. But Fox is going to run this time, because he didn't realize how fast Crawdad was. So Fox is getting ready this time, and his muscles are tensing, and he's ready to run. And Crawdad scoots back to the line, and Rabbit says, "Go!" And so Fox takes off. And again, Crawdad jumps out of the water and grabs that little tuft of fur at the end of Fox's tail. But Crawdad's really having to hang on because Fox is really running as fast as he can. So he's having to hang on, and he's flipping this way and flipping that way. And when Fox stops at the finish line this time, he turns his head because he knows he beat Crawdad this time. There's no way that Crawdad passed him. And he didn't see him pass him. But when he did, his tail flipped over and Crawdad let go. And so Fox turns around, and again, there's Crawdad. And Crawdad said, "All right, that's twice I've beat you. You can no longer drink from my water." And Fox is like, "How did he beat me?" And Fox is like, yeah, I won't drink from your water anymore." "But how did you beat me?" And Crawdad said, "I told you, if I raced you and I won, you couldn't drink from my water." Fox is like, "Can we race one more time?" And Crawdad's like, "I've already beaten you twice." And Fox says, "I won't drink from your water anymore. I just want to see if I can beat you." Crawdad's like, "Okay, but this is it, last time." Fox says, "Yes, this is it. I will only race you this last time, and this is it." So Rabbit hops back down to the other side, draws a line in the dirt. Fox gets ready, and he's going to pay attention this time. He's going to watch for when Crawdad passes him, and he gets ready. And Crawdad backs up to the start line, and Rabbit says, "Go!" and Fox takes off. But this time when Crawdad jumps out of the water, he grabs just a little bit more than the fluff of the back of Fox's tail. Fox knows that Crawdad's back there, and as Fox is running, he stops, but he doesn't turn his head this time. And when he stops, his tail flips over, and there's Crawdad hanging in front of Fox, and Fox gobbles him up. This story was told to teach our children that cheaters never win. You may get away with it the first time, you may even get away with it the second time, but eventually you'll get caught. What-o.
Amazing. Thank you, Tanya, so much for joining us today. We appreciate you. This episode of Chalagi Wherever We Are has been fantastic, offering insights into the economic impact of the Cherokee Nation, but also showcasing how these effects positively influence real people in our local communities. To learn more, please visit CherokeeNationImpact.com. Cherokees have no word for goodbye. We say, "Dodadago hunt'yi." Until we see each other again, wado.